I was very inspired by the kind of creative process that an architect undergoes when they're given a particular project. And that's exactly the kind of process that I do when producing my speculative art world. The artwork is titled The African Conservation Effort / All Africa Proto-Ports. And what it is an elaborate eco-fiction that starts from a kind of alternate timeline, a sort of inflection point in 1972, which is roughly 10 years after a lot of African countries gained independence from colonial rule. And what it does is it imagines that there was a continent-wide effort to dispel the colonial influence, colonial rule, but also to consolidate into creating a kind of massive continent-wide environmental movement. But then from there, what occurred in the intervening years is that this massive conservation effort led to discoveries of alternate fuel, alternate resources, power, conservation, and the developments of several hyper-travel advancements, notably suborbital travel and a kind of magnetic levitation tube loop, right? So the idea was that these two advancements would connect not only the continent of Africa, the countries within, but also through suborbital travel, connect the countries of the diaspora. So it's this kind of really massive attempt at world building along this alternate retrofuturist environmentalist timeline. So I kind of run the length of things that are more studies of just a kind of visual aesthetic, a language of travel in, the early 70s and what that looked like. Because travel was still a relatively new phenomenon at that time, right? And it still carried this kind of intrigue and prestige. But now in this fictional world, there is hyper travel, right? So it's even more so. So kind of drawing from that aesthetic of, early 60s, 70s travel ads, advertisements and language, the uniforms that were worn by flight attendants, by pilots, really reimagining what that might look like within the context of, this sort of large African travel complex, research complex. So they're visual studies, digital collages, photo montages that are just sort of vignettes and glimpses into this world. They're 3D printed and scale architectural models that are some of, the types of vehicles and technologies within this world. And then the video, which is a massive, 20-foot by 8-foot, I'm gonna have to translate it into metric, wall, is a way to it kind of ties it all together and sort of gives a broad overview of the story.